Hey folks, welcome to the Calf Kick Sports Podcast. My name is Tim Wheaton, joined as always by Ash. Today we're covering UFC 266. We're going to be covering the two main events, Volkanovsky and Ortega and Shevchenko versus Murphy. We're going to be covering the Diaz Lawler later in the week. But I'm joined as always by Ash. Ash, what is going on today, sir?
Man, I'm super pumped for this event, man. It's been a while since we've had a super event like this, don't you feel? Like in Florida, we had the Jorge Masvidal and Usman rematch. And that event had like some really, really good fights on it. And I feel like we finally got an event, man, with that quality of caliber. What do you think?
It has been a while since we had not only an event of this caliber, but just an event of caliber, if you will. Like even going back to UFC 265 was over a month ago, and that was an interim title fight. Before that, it was like Hall versus Strickland, and then we had a bunch of weeks of middle top 15 fighters headlining on ESPN. So it has been a long time since we had a major event like this, and I think there's some excitement going in from the community and the groundswell that we see coming into this. It's an exciting time. We have one really good fight in the main event. It's an amazing fight in the main event. And then in the co-main event, the Diaz Lawler fight, another could be great fight. And then in the co-main event is a fight. It is a fight.
Wait, so is the Nick Diaz fight with Robbie Lawler, that's 5 rounds, isn't it? Just double checking.
You know what? You might be right about that. That's actually true. Is that the case?
Yeah, the Diaz brothers got different rules, don't they, man? And they're gonna want it to be 5 rounds, definitely. So I think I need to double check that. But I did hear somewhere that it is a 5-round co-main event or co-main event.
Oh, co-main event.
Oh, no, look, it's the second time a non-main event and non-title bout has been scheduled for 5 rounds. So it's 5 rounds. It's crazy.
Man, look at that. So we'll be covering that one in another show of Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler too. Just one for the boys, because we were talking of like anyone who watched the first Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler fight is a grown boy by now, right? Like you're in your early 30s, settling down. Some other news, some other programming notes going on in the show. We launched calfkicksports.com. There is a store going on there. We got some Nick Diaz merch. Also wearing one of our shirts now. It's the Muhammad Ali digital watercolor shirt of the Sonny Liston knockout. So make sure to check that out at calfkicksports.com. Links will be down below, folks. But yeah, we won't waste too much time. Let's get to the fight. Brian Ortega versus Alexander Volkanovsky. Volkanovsky is a controversial champion because most people think he hasn't won a title fight in his career. They were close fights. Even if you think that he clearly won this fight, they were clearly close fights. What were your thoughts on? We'll start with the Max fights, and then we can start breaking down this fight a little bit more. But what were your thoughts on the Max fight?
That first Max fight, I didn't really feel like it was that close, man. I mean, people are saying that, it was so close, and it was this and that, and like Max adjusted fairly well in the fourth, but I basically had it 4 rounds to 1, man, for Volkanovski. I think the leg kicks did huge dividends. I mean, he made Max actually switch stance, and I think everyone knows that Max doesn't fight well just in southpaw, with the right hand forward. He fights better when he's just constantly switching stances, but Volkanovski took that away, with those leg kicks, and then when Max tried to switch stance, he just kicked the other leg. So it was a perfect game plan. I don't see it close, man. I don't know why it was considered close. I mean, what did you think?
I don't know. You might get like chewed out in the comments. Max fans are absolutely rabid people there.
Fuck you, man. Max all the way.
Max all the way. No one really, I can see what you're saying. No one really put a stamp on the first fight. Now, what about the second fight? Because the second fight was a lot more back and forth. There was knockdowns. There was a lot more clear stuff. How did you kind of feel about the second fight?
Right. So this is where judging gets really weird in MMA, because this is so weird, because you see the first 2 rounds, that you gave it, so you have Max, who clearly got the knockdowns in the first 2 rounds.
Clearly won the first 2. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, easily. You only give it 10-9 though, which I find weird. And look, it doesn't warrant a 10-8. He didn't smash him to pieces. He got 2 flash knockdowns on him, very good 2 flash knockdowns. But it goes back to the point of you mentioning, with TJ Dillashaw and Corey, when they fought, why is it that the 10-9 that TJ had is the same level of a 10-9 that when Corey dropped him? It's not the same, is it? So I think it goes back to judging in MMA. It gets really, really tricky. You can't give a 10-8 round to Max, but you could definitely give him a 10-9 round. But again, can you give that same 10-9 round to Volkanovsky. But yeah, as the fight progressed, I thought Volkanovsky, he adjusted really well. That third round is really the smoking gun, because I gave rounds 4 and 5 to Volkanovsky, albeit being very close. But I wouldn't call it a robbery, man. Like, again, that fight, I don't blame the judges for giving it to Volkanovsky at all. I mean, how did you see it?
No, yeah, I can't fault anybody judging it one way or the other. Like you said, the first 2 rounds very clearly for Max. He scored knockdowns off a head kick and uppercuts off in those rounds. Third round was extremely close, where Max landed some knees. Volkanovski was able to land some jab and lead hooks, and it was a close round. And like, I don't entirely know what to judge, because we always judge effectiveness and how much it impacted the fight. And then that round, it's very tough to really judge. And then the last 2 rounds probably give to Volkanovski. So it is the third round that really comes down to it. So I'm not going to fault anybody for judging it one way or another. However, like you said, judging is really, this is where judging is almost purposefully loosely defined. But yeah, giving the first 2 rounds where one fighter did score knockdowns and dominant strikes, 10-9, and then the other 2 rounds where the other fighter clearly won. Well, those were close rounds, but he won, so it's 10-9 still. Like, well, if you judge the fight as a whole, Holloway probably won those fights. But pride. I don't. Maybe. Pride and won championships, judging fights as a whole. So yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit tough to say conclusively. But yeah, I think I would give it. You know what? Let's move to the third fight. Let's say there's a Holloway versus a Volkanovski third fight. What do you think in that fight?
I think Volkanovski takes it, and I know that sounds extremely controversial. But there's a few reasons why I did pick that. I do feel like Max Holloway, as great as he is, he's not really evolved too much from the last 3 fights. He very much fights the same. He looked amazing against Calvin Kattar. He really did. He looked like a world beater. He looked like, the guy. But the thing is, when he's fighting Alex Volkanovski, for whatever reason, he's on the back foot. He gets kicked. He has to switch stance. He doesn't throw those kicks as often. I mean, the first fight, he barely threw any kicks, but the second fight, he started opening up a little bit. But I do feel like Volkanovski's stronger. He's got more powerful striking as well. Like, in terms of actual power, I don't think he's the better striker. He's a better wrestler. And he's got better cardio, which is insane. I think he's got better cardio than Max, genuinely. Mm-hmm. So I've got Volkanovski winning the third fight, man, honestly. And I'm gonna get chewed up in the comments, but I don't give a shit right now. I'm doubling down. I think Volkanovski will take that trilogy bout.
Yeah, I don't entirely know. I'm not as confident as you as clearly picking someone, because I think if the division was a little bit better, Holloway has flaws that people can clearly exploit, where you're using a lot of leg kicks, landing first, stuff like that, where even we saw Poirier kind of use that to beat Holloway as well. So the rest of the division isn't quite there in terms of being able to beat Holloway, but if you have the right game plan, he is potentially beatable. Easier said than done, of course. But yeah, in a third fight, I'm not really sure. I'm not that as confident as you are. However, let's get to the main event in this one. UFC 266, we have Brian Ortega, who got maybe the most one-sided beatdown in mixed martial arts history. He came back and beat Korean Zombie, I think last year or 2 years ago now. Now they've been coaching tough against each other, and now we got the title fight of Brian Ortega versus Volkanovski. Who do you have in this fight? Break it down. What do you see?
I mean, Brian Ortega, he is, if you were to compare the rest of his career to how Brian used to fight, then I'll be like, yeah, Volkanovski all day. But looking at the Korean Zombie fight, man, he had really good fundamentals. His left hand was glued to his chin the whole time. Not something he used to do often. He'd leave his chin a little bit open. And he was sharp, man. He was throwing that 1-2 cross really well. He'd throw leg kicks, and he'd mix it in with takedowns as well. But we've got to also remember, this is against a 35-year-old Korean Zombie. I don't feel like he's at his prime anymore, Korean Zombie. So as good as he looked, I don't know if that was a good reference point. And put it this way, what's Volkanovski really good at? He's good at leg kicks. And Volkanovski was leg kicking the shit out of Max. And so was Korean Zombie. He was leg kicking the shit out of Brian Ortega. I do feel like that will be the difference in the fight. I think the striking, Volkanovski's got better striking. He uses feints. He uses shifts really well. He uses leg kicks. He mixes up low and high really well to the body. I don't think Brian is that advanced in his striking yet. So I'm going Volkanovsky. I sound like a big Volkanovsky fan. I'm not. I just think he's a very good fighter. He's brilliant.
No, that's a fair point, especially on the leg kicks. I think that's very relevant in this fight because Ortega also uses a very long stance as well. So it's susceptible to leg kicks. And leg kicks was something that Volkanovsky probably definitely used against Holloway. That probably won him more rounds than not. Initially, for this one, I picked one fighter outright, but after watching tape, I actually think it's a little bit closer than I expected. Volkanovsky sometimes struggles in openings. This is where he mainly gets caught with strikes. The same uppercut that Max dropped Volkanovsky with and landed multiple times is the same uppercut that Ortega knocked out Frankie Edgar with. And I put it up today. I'll put it on the main Calf Kick Sports tomorrow. Ortega often finds good opportunities as a counter during an opponent's openings, such as the spinning back elbow that he landed on Korean Zombie. More often than not, though, I would say that his counters are questionable in that, like, so not questionable, but usually he doesn't even go for counters. Usually he just covers up and blocks and just backs away, which isn't a great look. Max was using a long stance and was able to land a lot of teeps smoothly against Volkanovsky. Ortega will be using a long stance like he did against Korean Zombie, and he was also using a lot of straight kicks to the body in that fight. For openings, to be safe, Volkanovsky will be using a lot of inside and outside leg kicks, feints to set up his shots, something that you absolutely mentioned. I think Volkanovsky will have a clear speed advantage in this fight and would be looking to set up his overhands and use a lot of the over-the-shoulder counters. Ortega, for his success, he was going to have to use a lot of leg kicks and be the aggressor. The most success that Ortega had against Max was during that round 3 where he was landing heavy leg kicks. And it's a surprise to look back and realize, like, oh, yeah, Ortega actually did fine for one round. He was actually doing really well. Like, that's something we will forget. He will also need to control the center and put Volkanovsky on the back foot. Lots of jabs, kicks, and feints. But neither fighter likes to be pushed back, and neither fighter actually likes to exchange. When pushed back, both typically cover up and try to pivot out. Now, in most analyzers, and this is something I try to avoid, most analyzers use generalities. I try to look for specific strikes, like that uppercut. I'm trying to look for specific things that we have. Most analyzers use generalities. And in this fight, I think generalities are actually just okay. The winner of this fight needs to throw first and keep their opponent pushed back. Both need to set up their shots with leg kicks and feints and not be caught on the entry. Overall, I am picking Volkanovsky. Ortega has the right offensive tools, but I don't think he has the right defensive tools. Even though he has good counters, more often than not, he just covers up and steps back when pushed. With an aggressive swarmer like Volkanovsky, eventually Volkanovsky should get through. I expect a late finish, which is going to look a lot like the Mendes fight. Officially, I'll take Volkanovsky. We have like TKO round 5 or something like that. I think he just eventually will find an opening because I think the defense of Ortega is not going to be up to snuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He's shorter than Max Holloway, got a bit of less reach as well. Mm-hmm. And Volkanovsky still managed to tag Max Holloway. I mean, if you guys think, I know you guys are thinking like, Volkanovsky just absolutely got smashed by Max in that second fight. He really didn't. I mean, if you look at their faces at the end of that fight, Max took some damage, man, for sure. But yeah, going back to the Volkanovsky Ortega fight, I couldn't agree more. I do feel like Volkanovsky is going to take it. Now, here's an interesting question for you, Tim. Do you think Volkanovsky is going to go for takedowns?
That's a great question because he has done it in the Holloway fight. He threw it in a couple of times. Yeah. I think it's a really smart thing to do because it keeps your opponent guessing of like, are we throwing hands or am I going for the takedown? And that really screws up your opponent's defensive, depending on where they're putting their hands. So it would be an intelligent thing to do. The thing is that his takedowns are not very... He's never actually got control. He just gets takedowns, and that's kind of the end of the exchange. He never actually keeps control. And Ortega has gotten his best submissions, not off of like, and I hate to say this, but it's not amazing jiu-jitsu. It just tends to be counters to takedowns where he gets his best submissions, right? So I think it would be a wise thing to do. But what do you think? Is that in the game plan? And how does Ortega handle that?
I think, do you know what? I almost feel like so the way I look at it, if I was Volkanovski's camp, I'll be like, there's plan A and plan B. So plan A, you're going to strike with him. You're going to avoid the takedowns. You're going to leg kick the shit out of this guy. You're going to crack him with the overhand right. You're going to go to the body, but you're going to strike with him. You're not going to go to the ground with the guy because you were giving this guy an opportunity to win because he's extremely good in the ground. Everyone knows he's amazing in the ground. Now, plan B, if he starts losing the striking exchanges, which could happen to Brian Ortega, then I feel like it's time to mix things up. But there's no rhyme or reason to start unnecessarily, making a risky game plan. I do feel like Volkanovski is a much better striker. He comes from City Kickboxing and he's sparring with Dan Hooker and Izzy Adesanya. And I mean, come on, man. Like, striking wise, I don't think Brian Ortega has a prayer, honestly.
Yeah, it's tough to really say because we've only seen Ortega in one fight, and it's one thing that we have to also question in reality is, was that Brian Ortega being that much better, or was it more Korean Zombie just fading in his skills? And I know like the current narrative is like, wow, Brian Ortega is amazing. That's the current narrative, but maybe also just Korean Zombie wasn't as good, or he got hit in that first round and never could recover. But one weird thing in this fight, Brian Ortega will have a clear height advantage, but he won't have a reach advantage in this fight. So if you're exchanging jabs, Volkanovski's jab is extremely fast. He's probably going to land first and land more often. But yeah, I think, like you said, training partners is going to be a lot better quality. I mean, Volkanovski, it potentially is a good fight for him. But do you see any opportunities for Ortega? Let's say he's down a few rounds. Does he still? He's losing in a lot of.
It, man.
Yeah. What do you see?
He can still do it. Like Cub Swanson, look what he did to Cub. I think he looked okay against Cub, but again, we've already discussed this stat. Yeah, he's been outlanded in every single fight, apart from the Korean Zombie fight, which is crazy because he's finished nearly everyone. He finished Clay Guida, he finished Cub Swanson, he finished a bunch of people. But it just shows you the evolution. His striking has definitely improved. I don't know if it's improved to the level where he can go up against the champ and outstrike him. I mean, if he does, man, props to him, man. Like, he's improved. He improved very, very well. But I don't know, man. I'm just completely dismissing Ortega. I probably shouldn't, but I just don't see it. I don't see him winning. Like, honestly, he looked bad against Max Holloway. He looked terrible. And I don't see how a person like that could beat the Volkanovsky that beat Max Holloway twice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I know it's not as simple as MMA math, but yeah, we'd like to think that Volkanovski is at least much more skilled. But yeah, we're both picking Volkanovski, even though I picked a bunch of tools that I saw that Ortega can win with. I just think his defensive tools are not going to be quite all there. But moving forward in the division, what happens after? Because the next fight is clear two top ranked guys, is Yair Rodriguez and Max Holloway, and they're supposed to be fighting. Let's be real. I think Max wins that fight. But okay, so Max either fights.
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's for another time, but I don't know about that. But
go on. Tell me more about
Yair. The rematch is happening, man. Look, if Yair Rodriguez, if he loses, if he loses against Max, and Max Holloway looks great, blah blah blah. I mean, a rematch is happening, man. Either with Ortega, or he's fighting Volkanovski for a third time. And Volkanovski is angry, man. Like, he is an angry motherfucker, man, going into this. Like, he's like, I'm going to put a hurting on Ortega, man. I'm going to smash him. And, I'm going to beat up this little princess, man. He keeps calling him a little princess, which is funny. So, and he even said, I think he's got a chip on his shoulder because if you look at his Instagram, man, people troll the fuck out of him, man, about Max Holloway all the time. They're just trolling him constantly. So with that chip on his shoulder, I feel like he's going to beat Ortega and he's going to be a different beast going into the Holloway fight. But if I'm wrong and Volkanovski loses, they'll do the Ortega and Max Holloway rematch. I mean, how could you not, man? You have to.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think Volkanovski, I can absolutely see him feeling disrespected by fans, even by the UFC, and even Max Holloway still won like fight of the year and fighter of the year and stuff like that, despite maybe losing those fights. He had, better performances. He's a much more revered person, despite officially on paper losing, but it's a tough fight to market next. Because if you do Max versus Volkanovski, you have to keep advertising that the judges probably got it wrong. You have to put that on a poster. You have to put that in every trailer of like, it's 2-0, but they probably got it wrong. And now you're just disrespecting Volkanovski more. Ortega versus Holloway. I don't know how you sell that fight with like, it was the worst beatdown in history, but maybe, this time.
Imagine if Ortega gets a beating from Volkanovski for 4.5 rounds and then he gets a guillotine choke on him, like the last minute. And then they're like, Holloway versus Ortega, guys. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, you serious?
So, it's a tough sell going forward of how you fit Max against either of those guys. Yair, that would be a fresh one if Yair does win that fight. And you're saying maybe Yair's got a pretty good chance here, yeah?
I think Yair could win that, man. He's a stylistic nightmare for Max Holloway. Max Holloway is not as good a kickboxer as Yair. And controversial opinion, I think he's going to start shooting it. He should start shooting, man, against Yair, because Yair's ground game, classically isn't great. I mean, we saw that against Frankie Edgar, but that was a few years ago. So I don't know if there's going to be a massive difference, but I think it'll be closer than people think, man, honestly.
No, and that's fair. I do like the 145-pound weight class. It's just you have to be good in this weight class because you don't carry a ton of power. But the guys who do carry power, it really does show in their fight difference. I'm excited for this matchup because I like the division a lot. Now, the real question, the real money question: are you staying up for it? Is it worth staying up?
Oh, yeah.
You're staying up for it. Okay.
100%, mate. Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler, Valentina Shevchenko, even Curtis Blades and, Jairzinho, that could be a main eventing a fight night card. And then you got Jessica Andrade. She always brings the heat. Man, look, Marlon Moraes versus Merab Divashali as kind of, that could be main eventing. Dan Hooker versus Naz. Man, this is an amazing card, man. Honestly, and I'm being genuinely honest. When I say a card is shit, I will tell you guys, I don't think this card is good. This is a brilliant card. I'm going to stay up for it.
You can tell when we're not into cards because we don't even talk about it. Like, we're supposed to have a weekly show and we're just like, I don't care. Who cares about it? I don't care at all. But yeah, it's like a Dan Hooker versus Nascarat Hart. The Dan Hooker fight could honestly just be a main event on a fight night. That's a really good fight. The Marlon Moraes could be a main event on a fight night. That's a really good fight. The Curtis Blades fight absolutely could be a main event on a fight night. And those are better than a lot of the main events that we had over the last couple of weeks. Those are really good fights on this card up and down. So you're staying up for it. But what about the real main event? The Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. Let me break it down quick. Lauren Murphy's on a 5-fight win streak in the division. She just beat Joanne Calderwood and Roxanne Modaffari and others. I'm going to say Valentina Shevchenko is, like, we've broken her down in the past with the previous fight that she had, where she fights really well at range. She has answers from people close distance on her. She clearly is just a few steps ahead of anyone else in this division. What do you have to add on this one?
I mean, look, I could say the key to victory for Lauren Murphy is to take her down. But then we said this last time with Jessica Andrade. And guess what happened? Valentina Shevchenko took her down multiple times and he got her in a crucifix and smashed her. So I don't know, man. I think, look, I respect Lauren Murphy a lot. I think she's a brilliant fighter, really good wrestler, really good grappling. I just don't think she's got enough to beat the GOAT, man, or the flyweight GOAT right now. And that's just me being completely honest. Like, I just don't see it, man. Like, you got who is it? Jennifer Maia. She had some good success against Valentina Shevchenko in one round where she took her down. And I think she pretty much dominated her for one round. She looked really good doing it. But that was only one round, man. Can she do that for 5 rounds? The answer for me, probably not. I mean, what do you think?
No, I can't add anything. Usually we're looking for tools that fighters do that are really well. Like, we're talking about the Brian Ortega uppercuts, but other areas he's not as good, blah, blah, blah. This one I can just confidently say that I think Valentina Shevchenko is better in every area of the fight. It's just, I think this is a pretty safe bet.
Probably not actual, like, if it was a wrestling match, I don't think Valentina would win. But everything else, if it was a jiu-jitsu match, if it was a kickboxing match, if it was a boxing match, I just see her winning all of it. No disrespect to Lauren Murphy, by the way. I think she's brilliant. I like the fact that, man, she's 38, man, and she's fighting for the title, bro. That's very, very good. And as a female fighter, I don't think I've seen too many older female fighters fighting for the title that late. But yeah, props to her, man. I don't see her winning, but I hope I'm wrong, man. Honestly, she's.
Oh, honestly, yeah. And she's had a fun kind of early to late career success where she was on a few losses early in her UFC, was able to reinvent, and now she's on a 5-fight win streak. That's pretty good. That's actually quite impressive there. But yeah.
Well, a bantamweight, man. And, she survived twice, yeah. I mean, she survived that bantamweight. That's the main thing, like, she actually survived. So I don't know, man. She's got the power advantage coming into it, but yeah, I just don't see it.
So yeah, I think that's all we need to cover off for those two main cards. Going to do the Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz on a different show. So we should have this show up Monday. Then we're going to have an interview up Tuesday, and then we should have the Lawler Diaz fight. Do you think up Wednesday or some other day this week?
I think let's do Lawler Diaz. We could do it tomorrow or Wednesday.
Sure.
That's fun for me, man. I just love breaking down Diaz.
Oh yeah, exactly. So we'll do Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler. Stay tuned for later in the week. This is covering the UFC 266. Make sure to check out Calf Kick Sports on Instagram, Twitter, calfkicksports.com. My name's Tim Wheaton with Tim Wheaton MMA. You can find me anywhere. Ash, play us out of here. What else we got going on? Where can we find more of you?
Well, actually, Tim, you've actually got a very, very interesting interview, happening tomorrow morning, man. You're going to tell everyone about that. You have to. I can't make it, but Tim has landed a big one.
Yeah, so we have the former One Championship light heavyweight champion in Ong Lasong, the Burmese Python. He's fresh off of a first round knockout, I think just last month. So we're going to talk about all things Burma, One Championship, what his future holds, because he is still vying for a title. He's a really interesting guy. He's kind of just been talking to me like small talk. So it's going to be weird interviewing some guy that I've already spoken to for quite a while now. But yes.
Just talk about so what did you do today?
Honestly, yeah. He just flew out to Singapore because I think that he's going to be in the audience for the Big One Championship show this Friday. But yeah, so he's going to be a really good interview. So we're going to have this show up. You're listening to it on Monday. We'll have the interview up on Tuesday, and then we'll have the Lawler Diaz fight up podcast on Wednesday, I think. But yeah, no, thanks for setting me up. Appreciate that.
No problem at all, Tim. And what I also think we might do, I mean, not confirmed, but we'll do a post event breakdown as well, probably next week sometime. Yeah, we'll keep you guys in the loop though, for sure.
Perfect. Calfkicksports.com and check us out on Instagram, Calfkick Sports. My name's Tim Wheaton, and ashmma.cks.
Have a good one, guys, and we'll catch you guys over the next few days. We're going to be very busy.